Hey, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to take this simple shapes drawing of Mickey Mouse that I did in my last video, and I'll draw the details of his head and face, like the finished version that you're seeing at this moment. I'll draw the details on top of my simple shapes version and erase my simple shapes as I go. At the end, we should have a nice drawing of the face of Mickey Mouse, and we'll be happy, unlike the expression that Mickey Mouse has in this case. This drawing demonstration is designed for you to be able to follow along and draw with me. I'll draw it nice and slow with plenty of real-time explanations of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. You should be able to keep up with me without any trouble. Before you start, I'd recommend that you complete the simple shapes version of Mickey Mouse that I demonstrated in my last video. It's linked in the video description. Also, it would be great if you downloaded this reference sheet so you can refer to both my drawing demonstration and the reference sheet at the same time. The first thing I want to do is get rid of a few extra sketchy lines. So I'm going to start right here with my line of action, which is kind of running right through his head. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. I won't need that anymore. It's kind of up here by his ear as well. I think I'll erase that. Okay. And then on my drawing, I made like a whole bunch of marking, locating lines. I'm going to take a minute and clean this up as well. All those lines that I kind of had, I'm going to get rid of them real quick. Just kind of get inside that ear. Maybe I've got a couple other things too. Just trying to clean him up a little bit here. Now, also while I'm working down here, I think that inside his snout, I'm going to take off some lines because it gets really confusing right in here. So I think I'm going to erase part of the top of his body, a little bit of my line of action in there also. I think I'm going to erase kind of the bottom of that circle. Okay, like that. Maybe about this much of it or so, like this. Trying to clean that up a little bit before I get too far. I think I'm going to erase inside his nose as well, like that. Just to make this drawing a little more simple and a little easier to understand. Sometimes on these demonstrations, I end up pressing a little harder than I might have wanted to. And so sometimes I like to take my kneaded eraser, and this can work with a regular eraser too. Take my kneaded eraser and kind of like to press up and down on my lines. And you can see when I do that, it lifts off some of the lead, but I can still see the kind of ghosted image of my drawing. Now, of course, I don't want to erase the whole thing because I'm using my simple shapes as a guide. But like I said, if your simple shapes are rather dark, it's nice to kind of get rid of those before you get too far along. Okay, I think that looks pretty good, and I'm ready to start. Now the first thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and work on his nose, which is this oval right here. Now, I've got a simple shape for it, and what I want to make sure on this oval is that it's big enough. Just going to go over it again. Notice how it's tilted. That it's symmetrical, meaning it's the same on both sides, even though it's tilted like that. Okay, so I'm going to work on that just for a second there. Now he has it's a very black nose, but I don't want to shade that quite yet because there's a white highlight or a shine that I want to get in this. And I'm going to draw an oval that's kind of on the upper side of his nose. And I think it's an oval that's something in this area here, like that. And I'll sketch that really light at first, then I'll improve it a little bit more. It's fairly close to the top edge of the nose. So I'm just going to sketch in this oval like this here. Okay, and that gives me that nice highlight. Now, later on I may want some super dark shading, but for right now I'm just going to quickly fill it in with gray, the nose, and leave the highlight like that there. like I said, I can go back later and do a little more dark shading. Okay, excellent. Now from there I want to work on his snout. Okay, so touching his nose about right here where my simple shape is, I'm going to start to work on a curving line. And this will curve like this, kind of for the top area of his snout. And I'm going to get this curving down maybe about like that. Okay. Now I'm going to clean this up as I go so we can make sure it's really clear and understandable. And there that is. Kind of a top line of that snout, as you can see. Okay. Also, I'm going to position the side of his head. And what I want to notice right here is how close the side of my head is to my nose. It's a really small space. So I'm thinking of a space like this. My simple shape is pretty much in the right spot. I'm just going to put this on here real quick. Just kind of curving up like that. So notice how close the head is to your nose. That's an important thing to see. Okay, great. I'm going to clean up just a little bit more in here. Right there like that. Okay, I am ready to draw an eye. Okay, here I go. Now it's extremely close to the side of his head, and it's basically a curving line that comes up like this following the angle of the head. And I'm going to draw that up until I get about right there. Maybe you used to have a simple shape line curving across his head, and if you put that about on that line, you're doing pretty good. Okay, there's the side of my first eye. Notice once again how close it is to the side of my head. Okay, this eye is fairly thin, so I'm going to put another line right here, and I'm going to bring this up, about like that. Okay, so that's giving me the other side of the eye. Okay, I'm feeling pretty good about that. Now I'm going to not draw the top of it because I'm going to cut off the top of his eye here in just a second. But what I'm going to work on next is my second eye, and it is super close to my first one. Okay, and it's going to be like this, and it's going to come down, and it's not going to touch my snout line. Okay, so you need to notice that. It's going to be super close to the snout line, but it's not going to touch it. Okay, and I'll bring this up. This eye's a little bit wider, and I'll bring it up like this. Here, notice how I'm not finishing the tops of the eyes at this moment. Okay, I'm feeling okay about that. I think that looks alright. I'm going to add some detail here. I'm going to put on a pupil, just with a curving line right there, like that. And I'm going to quickly fill that in. Okay. I'm going to put in another pupil in my other eye, about right here, like this, also curving down, and I'll fill that in right there. Okay. Now I want to add this super important detail to the top area of his eyes. I'm going to put on his eyebrows. Now notice very carefully how I'm going to do this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to judge from the top of these pupils right here. I'm going to come up about this far, and I'm going to put a little horizontal curving line right there. Okay? Just like that. And this is where I want to start a big line for his eyebrow. Okay, so if I'm starting it right there, I'm going to draw this up and just estimate this. It's going to be up here, oh, something like that. And I think I'll just stop right there for a second. Now this line here will give us the angry expression on our mouse's face. Okay. Alright, now I'm going to change this line a little bit, but before I do, I'm going to erase the top of that eye. And you see how that eyebrow kind of cuts across the top of his eye? And that gives him this angry expression that we want to kind of have here. Okay, I think I'm going to erase the top of the other eye as well, real quick here. Alright, so let's go ahead and finish off this first eyebrow. So this will be about right here, and it's going to curve up like this. Okay, now I want to make sure that's a nice curve like that. Okay, one eyebrow. Now I'm going to erase just a little bit right here because I want this eyebrow to overlap that eye just a little bit. Make sure that's nice and rounded like that. Okay, eyebrow's a little tricky, but it's really important when you're getting the expression on this mouse here. Okay, now this other eyebrow is a little different. It starts about here and it's going to go up, slanted, and it's going to make this little bubble curve and attach to the top of his head right there like this. Okay, there we go. I think that's looking pretty good. I'm thinking this eyebrow is just a little bit, I think I made it a little bit fat. I'm going to try to adjust it just a little bit. Maybe about right there. Now remember, if you have a mistake on your drawing, you never need to be nervous about trying to fix it up. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Now once again, that gives us the expression on his face like he's a little bit upset. So we want to spend a lot of time on the eyes, making sure they turn out pretty well for us. Okay, now I've got some sketchiness in here. I'm going to clean this up like this. Right there. I think that's looking pretty good. Okay, now let's finish off the top of his head right next to his ear. Now, what we want to have happen is we want to make the top of his head, which is right here, we want it to come in front of that eyebrow. So it's going to come like this and come down like that. And when we draw it this way, it makes it look like this eyebrow here is behind that part of his head, which adds a three-dimensional look to our drawing. We always want to get the 3D effect if we can. Okay, I'm feeling pretty good about that. Alright, now, I'm going to do something interesting. Now, Mickey Mouse has what is known as a mask on his face, and here's how I'm going to locate it. See the end of his snout line right here? I'm going to draw this as a slanted line slanting up, like this. And this will be a temporary sketch line. Okay, slanting up like that. Okay. And then I'm going to judge coming across from the eye to a spot about right here, and I'm going to make a dot. That dot right there is the point of the mask. I'm going to erase the extra length of my line. Okay, then I'm going to erase this weird sketch line too, just leaving that dot that I found like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to this eyebrow, follow this curve, and then right up here I'm going to bring this down and go right to that point like that. That adds part of the mask on his face like this here. Okay, I'm showing you that again. There you go. Okay, now here's where it gets a little more fun. Now from this point, I'm going to sketch out and over to the right as I finish off the back side of the mask. And I'm going to run this with a nice curve into the side of my head over here, like that. Okay, and that gives me the mask of my mouse. Okay, make that just a little bit darker so we can see it really well. Okay, now let's position his smile line. Now he's not really smiling, but it's an important line here. So watch what I'm going to do. From the point of my mask, I'm going to go across to the right to a spot that's about right there, and I'll make another little dot like that. Okay, and then I'm going to take this line and I'm going to curve it upwards and then downwards over about that far. Okay, that's a very important line right there. Okay, right in the middle of the line I'm going to put a mark, like that. And that's where his mouth is going to connect. Okay, so what I want to do now is go back to the bottom of his nose right here, and I'm going to sketch a line that's going to go like this. I'll show you the motion first of all. It's going to come up like this, and it's going to make a nice gentle curve right towards that mark like that. Okay, now let me go ahead and make that a little darker so we can see it. So bottom of the snout, then it's going to change direction, leaving that snout line, coming up with a nice curve, and hitting right there on his smile line. Okay, very good. Alright, now let me show you another quick little trick of drawing here. I'm going to take the point of my mask right here, I'm going to draw straight down with a vertical sketch mark like that. Now that makes him look really weird. but I'm putting that on there for a reason. This is where his lip connects to his mouth right there. Okay, so I'll put a little mark like that. Okay, so that shows you where that is. So I have the point of the mask lined up with his lip right there. Now I'm going to take that line off, because that makes them look really strange. But notice how instead of guessing where the lip connects, I lined it up with something already true. Okay, let's put on the lip. Now this lip is basically going to go parallel to this line here. Parallel means at about the same angle. So I'm going to come up here like this, I'm going to draw it up about this far, and then I'll stop. Okay, there's the lip of our mouse like that. Okay, now notice this carefully. When I look at this lip, I'm going to travel up this lip line until I get to a spot that's about right here. I'll put a little mark there. And I want this just to curve around and cut in and connect like that. Okay, I'll make that a little bit darker for you. Okay, that's all the hard stuff. There it is. Now, I think Mickey Mouse always looks strange if his head is lopsided. So what I like to do for a moment is pretend like he doesn't have any ears. Okay, he doesn't have any ears. And what I'm going to do is just put a mark here at the end of his face over on this right side. And I'm going to go back up here to his head. And what I want to do is I just want to draw as smooth a curving circular shape as I can. And I want his head to be as round as possible. And I like to ignore the ears for a moment. Just pretend like they're not even there. Okay, so I'm going to draw this head, making it as round as I can. You know, he looks funny when he's got a lopsided head, like he's got a dent in his head or something like that. So I always think it's a nice idea to make that as round as you can. Okay, let me clean that up just a little bit. Got some sketch lines in here. I'll get rid of those like this. Okay. Alright. Now, on his ears, what I want to do on the ears is just make sure the curves are nice and smooth. I've got a simple shape for his ear right here. I think it's pretty good. And I'm just going to go ahead and draw over that, trying to make my lines as smooth as I can. Checking my negative space, I should be right under my border, which I am. I don't need to change my simple shape hardly at all. I'll just bring this down to the top of his head like that. Okay, I'm going to take my eraser and erase some of the sketchy simple shape lines. Clean that up a little bit. Okay, then a very important step. Right here I'm going to erase his head, the top of his head, so it looks like his ear is connected like that. Okay, I'll just take that off right there. Okay, now I want to do the same thing to this ear. I've got a pretty good simple shape. I'm going to draw over it like this here, making sure it's as smooth a curve as I can make. Sometimes it might be a good idea maybe to turn your paper upside down or sideways if it makes it a little easier to draw a curve. Okay, I'm going to clean that up as well, like that. And then I want to do the same thing with my eraser. I'm going to erase part of his head right there so his ear looks connected to the head. Okay, very good. Now, I'm feeling pretty good about that mouse. I think he's got a nice, interesting expression on his face. And we're ready to move on to a couple more details.
So, how did yours turn out? I'm sure that if you are patient and careful, your details of Mickey Mouse's head and face are looking great. Be sure to look for my next video, in which I'll finish off all the details of his body. Thanks again for stopping by my channel, and don't forget to keep on drawing.